Welcome to 10 Minutes a Day, a daily reading of the Catholic Church's social encyclicals. Today we continue with Populorum Progressio, written by Pope Paul VI in 1967. The introduction of industrialization, which is necessary for economic growth and human progress, is both a sign of development and a spur to it. By dint of intelligent thought and hard work, man gradually uncovers the hidden laws of nature and learns to make better use of natural resources. As he takes control over his way of life, he is stimulated to undertake new investigations and fresh discoveries, to take prudent risks and launch new ventures, to act responsibly and give of himself unselfishly. However, certain concepts have somehow arisen out of these new conditions and insinuated themselves into the fabric of human society. These concepts present profit as the chief spur to economic progress, free competition as the guiding norm of economics, and private ownership as the means of production as an absolute right, having no limits nor concomitant social obligations. This unbridled liberalism paves the way for a particular type of tyranny, rightly condemned by our predecessor Pius XI, for it results in the international imperialism of money. Such improper manipulations of economic forces can never be condemned enough. Let it be said once again that economics is supposed to be in the service of man. But if it is true that a type of capitalism, as it is commonly called, has given rise to hardships, unjust practices, and fratricidal conflicts that persist to this day, it would be a mistake to attribute these evils to the rise of industrialization itself, for they really derive from the pernicious economic concepts that grew up along with it. We must, in fairness, acknowledge the vital role played by labor systemization and industrial organization in the task of development. The concept of work can turn into an exaggerated mystique, yet for all that, it is something willed and approved by God. Fashioned in the image of his Creator, man must cooperate with him in completing the work of creation and engraving on the earth the spiritual imprint which he himself has received. God gave man intelligence, sensitivity, and the power of thought, tools with which to finish and perfect the work he began. Every worker is, to some extent, a creator, be he artist, craftsman, executive, laborer, or farmer. Bent over a material that resists his efforts, the worker leaves his imprint on it, at the same time developing his own powers of persistence, inventiveness, and concentration. Further, when work is done in common, when hope, hardship, ambition, and joy are shared, it brings together and firmly unites the wills, minds, and hearts of men. In its accomplishment, men find themselves to be brothers. Work, too, has a double edge. Since it promises money, pleasure, and power, it stirs up selfishness in some and incites others to revolt. On the other hand, it also fosters a professional outlook, a sense of duty, and love of neighbor. Even though it is now being organized more scientifically and efficiently, it can still threaten man's dignity and enslave him, for work is human only if it results from man's use of intellect and free will. Our predecessor, John XXIII, stressed the urgent need of restoring dignity to the worker and making him a real partner in the common task. Every effort must be made to ensure that the enterprise is indeed a truly human community, concerned about the needs, the activities, and the standing of each of its members. Considered from a Christian point of view, work has an even loftier connotation. It is directed to the establishment of a supernatural order here on earth, a task that will not be completed until we all unite to form that perfect manhood of which St. Paul speaks, the mature measure of the fullness of Christ. We must make haste. Too many people are suffering. While some make progress, others stand still or move backwards, and the gap between them is widening. However, the work must proceed in measured steps if the proper equilibrium is to be maintained. Makeshift agrarian reforms may fall short of their goal. Hasty industrialization can undermine vital institutions and produce social evils, causing a setback to true human values. The injustice of certain situations cries out for God's attention. Lacking the bare necessities of life, whole nations are under the thumb of others. They cannot act on their own initiative. They cannot exercise personal responsibility. They cannot work toward a higher degree of cultural refinement or greater participation in social and public life. They are sorely tempted to redress these insults to their human nature by violent means. Everyone knows, however, that revolutionary uprisings, except where there is manifest, long-standing tyranny, which would do great damage to fundamental personal rights and dangerous harm to the common good of the country, engender new injustices, introduce new inequities, and bring new disasters. The evil situation that exists, and it surely is evil, may not be dealt with in such a way that an even worse situation results. We want to be clearly understood on this point. The present state of affairs must be confronted boldly, and its concomitant injustices must be challenged and overcome. Continuing development calls for bold innovations that will work profound changes. The critical state of affairs must be corrected for the better without delay. Everyone must lend a ready hand to the task, particularly those who can do most by reason of their education, their office, or their authority. They should set a good example by contributing part of their own goods, as several of our brother bishops have done. In this way, they will be responsive to men's longings and faithful to the Holy Spirit, because the ferment of the gospel too has aroused and continues to arouse in man's heart the irresistible requirements of his dignity. Individual initiative alone and the interplay of competition will not ensure satisfactory development. We cannot proceed to increase the wealth and power of the rich while we entrench the needy in their poverty and add to the woes of the oppressed. Organized programs are necessary for directing, stimulating, coordinating, supplying, and integrating the work of individuals and intermediary organizations. It is for public authorities to establish and lay down the desired goals, the plans to be followed, and the methods to be used in fulfilling them. It is also their task to stimulate the efforts of those involved in this common activity. But they must also see to it that private initiative and intermediary organizations are involved in this work. In this way, they will avoid total collectivization and the dangers of a planned economy which might threaten human liberty and obstruct the exercise of man's basic human rights. Organized programs designed to increase productivity should have but one aim: to serve human nature. They should reduce inequities, eliminate discrimination, free men from the bonds of servitude, and thus give them the capacity in the sphere of temporal realities to improve their lot, to further their moral growth, to develop their spiritual endowments. When we speak of development, we should mean social progress as well as economic growth. It is not enough to increase the general fund of wealth and then distribute it more fairly. It is not enough to develop technology so that the earth may become a more suitable living place for human beings. Mistakes of those who led the way should help those now on the road to development to avoid certain dangers. The reign of technology, technocracy as it is called, can cause as much harm to the world of tomorrow as liberalism did to the world of yesteryear. Economics and technology are meaningless if they do not benefit man, for it is he they are to serve. Man is truly human only if he is the master of his own actions and the judge of their worth, only if he is the architect of his own progress. He must act according to his God-given nature, freely accepting its potentials and its claims upon him. We can even say that economic growth is dependent on social progress, the goal to which it aspires, and that basic education is the first objective for any nation seeking to develop itself. Lack of education is as serious as lack of food. The illiterate is a starved spirit. When someone learns how to read and write, he is equipped to do a job, to shoulder a profession, to develop self-confidence, and realize he can progress along with others. As we said in our message to the UNESCO meeting at Tehran, Literacy is the first and most basic tool for personal enrichment and social integration, and it is society's most valuable tool for furthering development and economic progress. We also rejoice at the good work accomplished in this field by private initiative, by the public authorities, and by international organizations. These are the primary agents of development because they enable man to act for himself.